Greetings, fellow humans. I am Hugh.
And I am Man.
And together we are definitely not
Two
kobolds in a trench coat. We enjoy human activities, such as paying taxes,
having existential crises,
and RPG horror stories. Let's see what we've got today.
Today, we have a two-part story about a railroading DM, inexperienced or intentional. We'll find out. Railroad DM, or just different styles of DMing, by Reddit user ThrowRawDandy. Some context. Former Forever DM playing in my first campaign. We've been in a D&D group for 4 years now, beginning during COVID, and whilst we had some players come and go, there's been a consistent 5 of us that have played the entire time, with me DMing through the 2 campaigns spanning across 3 years, with some breaks, the second entirely homebrew. The newest campaign is 4 sessions in, ran by a member of the group who got his D&D beginnings with us. He's DM'd 2 one-shots prior to this, one of which ended in him essentially proclaiming we'd played it wrong by going through the dungeon out of order and harassing shopkeep NPC. However, he seemed to realize the error of his ways, hence his second one-shot, where he ran the story again with the added info that we were supposed to be a party of noble mercenaries. The expectation when added in beforehand allowed us a much smoother experience and was generally liked by everyone, which is why we were happy to play in his upcoming campaign. The new campaign is entirely homebrew, and whilst I'm sure that this is the case of many people taking up DMing, there were already a few red flags. He hasn't read the core rules of the player's handbook, which is partially on me. I don't require the players to learn the rules when I'm taking up the game, just to ensure that they understand what's on their character sheet, and I adjudicate the relevant rules as they come up. I feel it should be the responsibility of the DM to know the rules of the game that they're running. Whatever, we can deal with the rules as they come up, and he has me to help him with the table. The campaign began with my character in the tavern without agency automatically talking to another PC's character. No introduction or choice on how they could approach each other, simply dropped into the conversation, but that can be chalked up to the beginning of not knowing how to get a party to first meet. And so, after a conversation, the party takes on some odd jobs on a bounty. I started noticing issues when the scenes would progress automatically, and so you go to the wizard tower, without the DM ever asking us what we would like to do, if we were finished in the current scene/location. Travel becomes assumed when the DM is ready to move on, which again feels a bit of agency removed and places the game on rails.
Yeah, that's pretty textbook railroading. If the DM is just moving you on rather than asking where you want to go and is deciding when that happens, yeah, you're not playing a D&D game, you're playing a linear video game. But this does just sound like an inexperienced DM who just doesn't understand what it's supposed to be.
Sometimes it's okay to move things along, sometimes you have to as a DM, because I've been a player many times, and many times I've played in campaigns where we do go completely off the rails to the point that the DM does have to get the game back on track. Every time is a little excessive. However, what pushed me to make this post and gauge other opinions was a series of specific exchanges during the 4th and most recent session. We'd been running another job for a friendly NPC when another group approaches us described with antagonistic intentions. We'd recently pissed some people off and experienced road rage. We were driving a wagon, so we were all very cautious interacting with this group as they began to perfectly describe my character and demand to talk to us. Due to backstory reasons, my character being an escaped servant, the party prepared to defend me, and I readied the spell Thunderwave to blast the pursuers back. I told my DM I was ready to cast it, and he says, "The wagon is 20 feet away." He knows that the range is 15 feet. It felt intentional to undermine me. The other player driving the wagon knew the range, however, and wanted to aid me, telling the DM, I slow down the wagon so he can get the spell in range, prompting the exchange. DM, you slow the wagon, and they also slow down, even though previously they were trying to get next to us and speak to us and spot my character? Player, well, I'm going to veer off and stop the wagon, once again attempting to get me in range. DM, they stopped the wagon. Me, I cast Thunderwave. They're still out of range. DM, and now they're getting out of the wagon, thus making it too dangerous for me to use Thunderwave without catching the party in the crossfire. The DM knows I would do this. And so I didn't get to cast my spell and combat ensued.
The first point of them starting about 20 feet away, I understand. Under different circumstances, that could be a DM just trying to give you a bit of a challenge to get into range and force you to actually do something a bit more creatively. But when they actively just deliberately keep outside of that range, that is a DM deliberately trying not to give you an advantage in combat with unrealistic actions. Physics is a thing. You hit the brakes, the person behind you has to think about it and then have stopping time. Ergo, they would pass into 15 feet range.
Yeah, this isn't a cartoon. We're not stop, starting, slow down. Physics, human behavior, it all works out a little bit differently.
Although just 1 point OP, you'd have blasted your party with Thunderwave regardless. It hits everything in a 15-foot radius, which means everyone on the wagon was getting blasted, along with everyone on the pursuing wagon. Sorry, dude.
Whatever, we interrogate the guys and learn that there's a bounty out for me from my old crew, and head to the town to find and confront them. The party decides early on that they're going to fake fulfilling the bounty by taking the enemy my jacket. In the bounty description, the enemy would recognize it. They would never deliver me to the enemy. They're described as running their operations out of a cellar beneath the tavern. 3 out of the 5 party members go in, with myself and another PC guarding me. Despite a well-thought-out plan in which we con the enemy using real evidence of my captivity and some decent persuasion rolls as well as magical charm spells from our bard, the DM will not have either of the enemies leave the cellar. It becomes painfully obvious that the solution to this problem involves going down and fighting them in their lair, which we specifically wanted to avoid, and an argument breaks out. The DM explains that not all NPCs act the same and not everyone's going to trust you. These guys deal with criminals as a job. They simply would not trust you. They don't believe that you have my character captive. This seems like somewhat of a fair point. However, the illusion of choice is shattered. There's clearly only one correct choice for us to progress the narrative, causing myself and one PC to entirely switch off from the game. The PC guarding mine, however, has had enough and heads down to investigate, only for the big reveal to be that his PC is an old friend of the very people hunting my PC, bringing party conflict into the story, which we wanted. After the session, I decided to ask the DM. I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason that you were hell-bent on us going down to the cellar and not letting the friends plan work is because of the cool reveal, right? He agreed. He said that a bunch more stuff was planned, but we were avoiding it. In my experience, sometimes it doesn't matter what you plan because the party is going to do something else anyway. As a DM, you have to be willing to throw half of your planned content out the window because the party goes in a completely unexpected direction. But perhaps that is just my style of DMing and this is his. Thoughts? TLDR, friend DM is forced specific solution by not allowing any alternate plans to work to a roleplay encounter to bring about a specific scene to have a cool reveal. Some of us feel railroaded. Were we?
Short answer is yes, OP. This does feel railroady. It feels very innocent and naive from the DM. It feels like they had a storyteller, they didn't know better and didn't feel like they could handle any deviation. Although those guys coming out of the basement could have been either way. It'd be interesting to see what the rolls on persuasion were, what you define as good there. So overall, yes, but with a pretty big caveat of this is newbie DMing.
I get that the DM had like a certain vision in his head for how he thought that this would go. It would have ended up with the same cool reveal either way because then they would have come out to the wagon, right? And then the person would have been there and it would have been like, oh, hey, bro, what's up? Like, it still would, it would have happened either way.
It does feel like they didn't need to stay in the basement for that, you're right. The village the party go to is the right village. As a DM, you can just have whatever thing you were planning to be somewhere else.
That's the beauty of being the DM. You're always able to pivot whenever you need to pivot.
Pivot!
Pivot! Pivot! Shut up!
And sometimes that might have not been the village you thought things were going to happen in, but now it is.
Railroad DM forces us to reenact his favorite manga by Reddit user Throwaway Dandy. 3 months ago, I detailed my table's experience with our last DM and chalked most issues up to growing pains, as this is his first campaign. We talked to him. I, as the table's previous DM, offered some advice about going with the flow, not writing things set in stone, dangling plot threads and allowing the players to choose some to go after. ultimately affording the party agency over their choices. This seemed to be well received, and the initial sessions that followed were an improvement over the railroad extravaganza we experienced in the previous post. Berserk fans will see the problems here right away, but none of the table besides our DM have read the series. In session 2, we were attacked by a demon called Nosferatu, who was too powerful to kill and escaped in a cinematic cutscene-esque moment. This wasn't fun. In a later session, my character received an amulet known as Behelit. These were cool sounding names, and I was actually impressed with the DM for coming up with these concepts, such as the God Hand, which ruled his homebrew world. We were told by some NPCs that this Behelit was a powerful artifact which could bring great ruin in the wrong hands. Another player's character, we're calling Barbarian, had his backstory closely linked to Nosferatu, as he had slaughtered his entire military company, leaving Barbarian the sole survivor. In a later session, Barbarian became the owner of a homebrew magic item, a large greatsword bigger than himself. Now, if you didn't know already, all of this is actually from Berserk. The greatsword is the signature weapon of Guts, perhaps the most obvious, but the God Hand is also not an original idea, and instead ripped straight from the series alongside Behelit, a device used to start an eclipse, but we didn't know that yet.
As something of a weeb myself, I do understand getting ideas and inspiration from anime. In fact, I have a cleric character that I may or may not have based off of an anime character.
I mean, who hasn't based a character off an anime character?
Yeah, I would say it probably happens more often than not. Let's be real, anime has some really interesting stuff going on, characters, story-wise. Hell, do it. I mean, there's nothing saying that you can't do that. But like, you can be creative about it. I'm not directly ripping off the character. It's just inspiration.
Every DM who has homebrewed everything has ripped off something from some kind of media. I myself wrote a Jurassic Park theme campaign where I ripped off half the encounters from my favourite dinosaur-based TV shows and documentaries. Players loved it. Just as long as you're not too on the nose, it's a pretty good idea, to be honest.
There's a difference between being inspired and then ripping it off. When you rip it off, it's not as fun, but if you're able to do it cleverly and incorporate elements from said anime or media, they're gonna enjoy it and be like, oh hey, I see what you're doing there. Good going. And then it's fun for everybody.
In our most recent session, we found ourselves aiding a local mercenary company in sieging the outpost of some enemy soldiers. We were equipped with wagons, ballistas, and smoke powder, so when Nosferatu also showed up, even though he claimed to be on our side, he tried to kill us again just the session before, we attacked. We unloaded barrels of oil, the catapult spell, and every spare spell slot we had to kill this NPC, essentially BBEG, who had been tormenting us. DM laughed smugly, hardly any damage. Then it was Nosferatu's turn, and he immediately dealt double my health in a single blow. I was dead. So as a Hail Mary, I asked the DM if I could use my reaction to pull out the Behelit. He allowed it, and with great shock on his face, "What have you done?" he said, as if I was supposed to know what was about to happen. The God Hand appeared, thousands of monsters began to slaughter the mercenaries and soldiers alike. I realized I had begun some sort of slaughter, known as the Eclipse. I had another character in mind I'd like to play in this campaign, and ultimately didn't mind dying, though I attempted to sacrifice myself to stop the slaughter, targeting myself with spells, trying to negotiate with the God Hand, and even calling on my cleric god, Umberly, to lend a hand, offering all of my levels in cleric and my character's life to spare the lives of everyone in the party. Nothing worked. I soon learnt why. Magically from the sky, a skeleton man riding a skeleton horse penetrated the eclipse and whisked us all away to safety. The DM had a Deus Ex Machina DMPC prepared. Awesome. After feeling totally robbed of our agency, I curiously googled Behelit, assuming it was some sort of mythical item like a Philosopher's Stone, appearing in various works. No, it's a unique item from Berserk, very central to the plot. My friend was also curious, and found the Berserk wiki page for Zod, also known as Nosferatu, an immortal demon, sworn enemy of the Skull Knight. The Skull Knight saved Guts and Casca from the eclipse in the manga, just like he saved us. We haven't played since discovering all of this, and we don't really know how to break it to DM. I'm really not interested in playing this campaign anymore, and I'm not alone. We're 10 sessions in, and he's consistently railroaded, limited our agency, and plagiarized other works. This DM is our longtime friend, and has told us how much effort he has put into creating the world. He spent hundreds of dollars on a 3D printer, resin, and plastic miniatures. He told us he's already printed out minis for the end of the campaign. Most of the table have privately told me they want to go back to having me as the DM. That will absolutely break his heart. Of course, I have used ideas from other media in my campaigns too, but I've reskinned and reflavored them or merged them with other ideas to make them unrecognizable to my players and not shatter the magic. TLDR, Railroad DM continues to railroad, this time to force the party to unknowingly reenact scenes from Berserk. We learn through googling NPC names that we are basically playing fanfiction and no longer want to play.
So this is literally like what I just said. Players find out that they're literally just playing a ripped off fandom of something and they go, not clever, don't like it. I don't really know why we are like this as humans, but it's like we always need a little bit of originality into things. So even if you are quote unquote ripping things off, you gotta flavor it with some originality.
I know us millennials love nostalgia like moths love lamps, but the DM definitely could have done a better job at altering these ideas. Those are some pretty good concepts that could definitely be translated into D&D. Just don't put them in scene for scene and give the players options in order to make it different from the source material.
The other issue is obviously the Behelit thing. OP had this magical item. He doesn't necessarily know what it does, but he uses it because he's about to die, and then all of a sudden, chaos ensues. I'm guessing that the DM wanted it to happen that way so he could bring this skelly man thing, whatever that was, out of the sky to, again, recreate part of Berserk. Again, like, I don't think it's wise to give your players magical items that they don't understand or don't know exactly what they do and just use as a Hail Mary, because maybe it shouldn't be used as a Hail Mary.
Actually, that's kind of why I really like that idea. Giving players cursed items that can backfire and cause things to go wrong if the players don't properly research it or make effort to find out what it is a good idea. However, in order for that to work, you've got to give your players opportunities to research it, maybe drop lore hints that might hint that it's not quite what it seems or something might go wrong, but be vague enough so that they might use it if they were desperate enough. It's a concept I like. I think it was just executed very poorly.
And again, executed in a very railroady kind of way so that it could really only end up one way. Yes, this is going to be a difficult conversation because if everybody is not wanting to have this DM anymore and they're not happy with the campaign, and he's put in so much money and time into this, yeah, I will challenge him on the fact that he's put so much into planning the thing, like everything is not original. So from that perspective, not a lot of creative energy necessarily has gone into this. Yeah, he's dumped some time and money into it.
Yeah, maybe have another chat. Maybe calculate how far you are from the end of the campaign. If you've only got maybe a couple more sessions, it might be worth just finishing it up just to keep him happy and not causing too much of a fuss. It's not as if there's abusive elements or triggering elements in the campaign, and then go back to having you as the DM afterwards. But, you know, that's on you guys as a party and a friend group to figure out.
Hey, Hugh.
Yes, man?
What do you call a white dragonborn spellcaster who works at Dairy Queen?
I don't know. What'd you call him?
A blizzard lizard wizard.
And with that, we have definitely not been two kobolds in a trench coat. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and make the necessary sacrifices to Tiamat. We'll see you next time.